a sperm entering an ova. It's on the bottom of page 488. And then shows a diagram of the cytoplasm, the ovum, the nucleus, the sperm cell. What you need to know is only one sperm cell can get in for whatever reason. Okay, so fertilization most often occurs in the outer 1/3 of the fallopian tube or the uterine tube. If you look at this diagram, figure 22-2, it shows the ovulation where the cell leaves the ovary, and it shows the little fingers pulling it into the tubes. Then it shows the fertilization, and then it shows divided zygote. I don't know if you can see that well enough. The cell divides inside, and it divides over and over and over until it becomes something that they called a morula, M-O-R-U-L-A. Then after that, the morula has this empty place. I don't know what to call it. It's surrounded by something called a blastocyst. And then that is what implants. And the implantation day is day 10. It doesn't say that on here, but you need to know that. The amniotic cavity and placenta are the next section. The inner cell mass, the morula we're talking about, forms a structure into two cavities, the yolk sac and the amniotic cavity, okay? In birds and whatever, the yolk sac is a nutritional thing. In humans, one of its functions is to produce blood cells. I'm trying to eliminate some of this. We don't need all this information. All right, so 22-5, at the bottom of page 490, shows a real placenta, and that's the side that faces the mom, okay? It's really vascular, lots of blood vessels, whatever, and that's when it pulls off, that's when the woman bleeds, and we have to keep it from bleeding to death. And it shows in a cutaway, this diagram shows the chorionic villi and all this stuff that I don't care about, all right? That makes up, or that shows you how the placenta is made up. And I'll tell you the things I'm interested in. How's that? So if you look at, yeah, I saw a hand raised. All right, so figure 22-4 shows implantation and early development, and you can see the yolk sac and the amniotic cavity. I think it's kind of a poor diagram, but that's just me. I don't get much out of it. All right, so, gosh, I'm choking to death here. All right, so 22-4 shows the chorion, okay. There's 22-4. I've lost it. Oh, the top, the one I was talking about. There's two layers, a chorion and an amnion, and it's one layer over the other. They're not attached. Look at me. Look at me. This is the chorion, this is the amnion, and they are not attached to each other. They're just on top of each other. And the chorionic villi connect the blood vessels of the chorion to the rest of the placenta. The placenta anchors the fetus to the uterus and provides a bridge for the exchange of nutrients and waste products. So mom sends the nutrients, baby sends back the waste products. It consists of urine and lots of things. We'll get to that later. But Anyway, mom disposes of the waste and sends the blood to the fetus, okay? The placenta's only there while she's pregnant. It talks about it being a barrier to some things, some medications, and other things get through. So it's not every medication that is filtered by the placenta. It talks about some of the things that get through, cytomegalovirus and the Zika virus, bacteria that causes syphilis, and it goes on and on. All right, so periods of development, there are three-month segments, right? It's kind of like being in nursing school. There are 3 trimesters. And this is as painful as having a baby, isn't it? All right, so the zygote, which is the fertilized egg, right? After 3 days of the cell division, it makes the morula. We talked about that. Then it goes to the blastocyst stage. And then it gets to the embryonic phase. The embryonic phase extends from the 3rd week after fertilization until the end of week 8 of gestation. This is called the first trimester. The term embryo is used to describe the developing offspring. And then it says by day 35 of gestation, the heart is beating, even though the little squirt's only 8 millimeters long. All right. The period of development extending from week 9 to week 39 is termed the fetal phase. Your book refers to, this book and your maternity book refer to a term pregnancy as 39 weeks. For my purposes, it's 40. So anytime it says 39 weeks, that's 40, okay? So the fetal phase is week 9 to 39. But what is that? It's not 39, it's 40, okay? Formation of the primary germ layers. The germ layers are what make different parts of the fetus. And it starts out talking about stem cells. What we've heard about stem cells is you can make parts with it, right? It's kind of like where you go get your car parts. Anyway, women are having babies to get the stem cells to cure another child that's sick. That's what I've heard about. Children with cancer, their mom will have another baby to get the stem cells. I was at the nail salon one day, and this lady was trying to get up on one of those spa things, and her knees were real stiff and looked swollen. And I said, "Oh, you had knee replacement?" She said, "No, I had stem cells." She had gone to St. Louis and had stem cells put in both knees. I thought it sounded spooky, but I hope it worked for her. All right, so let's look at the primary germ layers. They're on page 492. I'm going to tell you to mark certain ones because they're on your exam, okay? So this is what you need to think about. We're building this baby, right? So we're starting from the inside, which is the endoderm. Then the next layer is the mesoderm, and then the outside layer is the ectoderm. All right? 3 layers. So the first one they list is the ectoderm. And I'm going to tell you what you need to mark because I'm going to ask you which layer these come from, okay? So in the ectoderm, we make the epididymis of skin, the lens and the cornea of the eye, and the nasal cavity. We make all those other things too, but I'm not going to make you memorize these whole lists, okay? The mesoderm, now think about it, we've made outside stuff, okay? The ectoderm is things that are on the outside of this Build-A-Baby. So the mesoderm, which is, we're going inside now, is the dermis of the skin, the circulatory system, the kidneys, the gonads, and the bones. Now we're going to go into the very center. So we come up with the lining of the GI tract, the lining of the lungs, kidney, ducts, and bladder. Now we've already made the kidneys, right, in the mesoderm. And then we get let's see, I didn't mark this one. The pituitary, anterior pituitary, all right? And then we get tonsils and some other stuff. All right, so I've told you kind of what to mark, and you need to know which layer they come from. And think of it as building from the outside in, and it'll make more sense. You'll be able to keep them in your mind better.
Miss White, could you repeat for the ectoderm, please?
The ectoderm is epidermis of the skin, lens and cornea of the eye, then and the nasal cavity. Okay?
Thanks.
You're welcome. And now it gets kind of tricky. If you look at this diagram on page 493, it shows you the wicks across the top of the diagram. Okay? And it shows you what's being built at which stage. Okay? If you look at the central nervous system, it goes further than anything just about. The reddened part means it's more important. I don't know how to put this exactly. So the central nervous system is being put together all the way to 16 to 20 weeks. So if anything interrupts this pregnancy, or if she's exposed to a chemical or whatever, this is what's going to get affected. Okay, so if you look at upper limbs, if they're being formed at week 4 and 5 and something happens, they may not have an arm, or they may have something that's deformed. And so you need to pay attention to what's being built when, okay? Because that's when things happen that are not great. Okay, so if I ask you at week 9, what's being made? Central nervous system, right? And then at the very bottom, it says external genitalia, maybe, I don't know, and teeth and palate. So some of those at the bottom become important, okay? So it says major birth defects are in the red, minor birth defects are in the yellowish color. And what affects these fetuses are called teratogens. There are 3 types of teratogens. The chemical kind, when she's exposed to chemicals, it can be environmental, which could be, it says cigarette smoking, chemicals, alcohol, some of those things. But just think about if she's pregnant and works in a place where they make fertilizer, it might not be really good, or a husband may work and bring that stuff home. So she has to think about that carefully. She may want to quit her job, right? All right. So the process of birth is sometimes called parturition. As pregnancy draws to a close, the uterus becomes irritable, and ultimately muscular contractions begin. This permits the fetus to move into the birth canal, and hopefully they're upside down by this time, right? Look at the diagram on the next page, page 494. So it shows the correct position that the baby's supposed to be in, the fetus. I say baby all the time, and I know it's a fetus, so don't correct me. Just kidding. So somewhere along the way, towards the end of the pregnancy, the baby turns, okay, head down. And if they don't, she might have to have a C-section. Okay, if they're transverse, meaning side to side, she may have to have a C-section. There are a lot of other reasons to have a C-section. If baby doesn't tolerate labor and delivery well and his heart rate drops, they may have to do a C-section. So there are other reasons. But anyway, that's a good diagram to show you what's going on. And then it says stages of labor. Stage 1, the period from the onset of uterine contractions until dilation of the cervix is complete. Dilation is considered to be complete when it's 10 centimeters. That's about this big. How many babies do you know with a head about this big? I have a thing in my classroom, I'll show y'all tomorrow, that shows the different dilations, how big they are. All right, so the beginning of the first contraction until dilation is complete, which is 10. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is the period from the time of maximal cervical dilation until the offspring exits through the vagina. And then stage 3 is delivery of the placenta. Okay. There is a stage 4. We'll get to that in the other book. Stage 4 is stabilization. We want mom to get stable. Okay. She's not stable when she has this baby, especially if its head is 15 centimeters. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, that last little period is stage 4. Oh, it says delivery of the placenta is normally 15 minutes, but it's 15 to 20. Oh, they're going to talk about APGAR scores, aren't they? Ooh. We're going to talk about APGAR scores in the maternity book. They give nurses love their numbers, nurses and doctors. They have something called an APGAR score, and they are looking at 5 different things, I think: heart rate, respiratory rate, muscle irritability, some other things. Anyway, they give them a number, 0, 1, or 2, and depending on the condition of the baby, based on that, it's called the APGAR score. They do it at 1 minute and 5 minutes. And if they're stable, it's usually a number like 7 at 5 minutes. We'll get to that in the maternity book. I don't want to overwhelm you today. All right, so on the right-hand side on page 495, it talks about quickening. That's when mom first feels the baby move, and I'm going to contradict what your book says. Your book says between weeks 16 and 18. Well, my number is 20. 20th week is when she feels it. Before that, it's too easily confused with everything from gas to the position of the baby. Okay, so quickening, that's when she first feels the baby move. All right, that's where I end in this book. We don't finish this whole chapter. Ms. Moore picks up right there and goes all the way to wherever she goes. I don't know where she goes. Okay. If y'all want me to, I'll go through this chapter test at the end. Now, we haven't done some of these, so I wouldn't expect you to know it. What we cover is down to number 9. So the first one says a fertilized ovum is called a zygote. Zygote. Second one, after about 3 days of mitosis, the fertilized ovum forms a solid mass of cells called the morula. Number 3, mitosis continues, and by the time the developing egg reaches the uterus, it has become a hollow ball of cells called the blastocyst. The placenta anchors the developing fetus to the uterus and provides a bridge for the exchange of substances between mother and offspring. The gestation period lasts about 39 weeks, actually 40, and is divided into trimesters. Number 6, 3 primary germ layers are the endoderm, the mesoderm, and the ectoderm. Number 7, the process by which the primary germ layers develop into tissues is called histogenesis. And number 8, the process by which tissues develop into organs is called organogenesis. That makes sense, doesn't it? The process of birth is called parturition. Okay, so I filled out the rest of these, but we haven't gone over them. You're not responsible for the rest of them. Do y'all have your maternity book? If you do, I can go ahead and start lecturing on the other stuff. And we'll have this exam on the 16th, okay? So don't forget it. Let me get my book. Okay, where did I put my book? So the next thing we're going to do is chapters 4, 5, and 6. Oh, not in that book. I think I left my maternity book at the school. Let me go look.
So do you guys think that she just ended was Unit 1 exam? Now she's starting Unit 2 exam material?
Yeah, I think so. You just said 4, 5, and 6, and I think that's Unit 2. I'm not quite sure, though.
Yeah, it says Unit 2 in the book.
Yeah, it's Unit 2.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Okay, so I left my book at school yesterday. So the chapter 4 starts with reproductive challenges and all kinds of stuff. I don't know how to cover that without a book. But it talks about everything from birth control pills to mammograms and when you get them, and pap smears, and we'll cover that. 3 and 5, chapters 3 and 5, cover just about all of this stuff that we just did in the A&P book. I just like the way it's laid out better in the A&P book, and that's why I use it. So if you don't have the A&P book, you can get just about everything you need from chapters 3 and 5. I went through and marked the page numbers. Where did I mark them? You also have PowerPoints. Y'all aren't using your PowerPoints, and you need to. Oh, there's a good chart on page 233 in your A&P book. And I like the way it lays out FSH and LH. So if you want to go look at that sometime, you can. Gives you what they do. So if you look at the male reproductive system, it's on page 40 and 41 in your maternity book. If you look at this cell division diagram on page 465, that's on page 89 and 90 in your maternity book. The description of the sperm cell is on page 90. This kind of jumps around, I'm sorry. It goes between chapter 3 and chapter 5. External genitals are on page 40. The female reproductive system starts on page 44. The mitosis meiosis diagram is on page 89. The external genitals of the female are on page 42. The menstrual cycle is on page 48. Oh, it gives you a description of FSH and LH on page 47 in your maternity book. The diagram that shows ovulation and fertilization and implantation is on page 93. And the phases of development are on page 90 and 91. The germ layers, oh, I didn't write it down. Didn't write it down, sorry. This diagram, figure 22-7, showing you the critical periods of development. 101, page 101. Anyway, if you don't have your structure and function book, you can get by. I mean, it's in the maternity book. It's just kind of chopped up. I like it better in this book. And I guess y'all can go now because I don't have my book. Sorry. Go to lunch at 9:30 in the morning. Oh, mercy. I'll see y'all tomorrow, right? Bring your stethoscope, your sphygmomanometer, pen light, a pen. What else? If you have a pulse oximeter, you could bring that. I would suggest that you get a pulse ox if you don't have one. You can get them online, not very expensive. You're always looking for one when you go to clinicals. That and a thermometer. I had a thermometer that the school bought and left it at a nursing home, and somehow it just walked away. So they're about $60, so I don't recommend you get your own thermometer. I mean the good ones that you put the cover on and put in their mouth. Anyway, so don't forget to bring all that stuff. Wear the right shoes and the right clothes and whatever. I think Miss Manners just said scrub. She didn't care what kind, right?
Oh no, she cares what kind.
Oh, okay.
That was for the test she did. She didn't care what scrub you wore, basically. But for clinical, it is clinical.
It is green and white. Yep, it is green and white, for sure. All right, well, I'll see you in the morning.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Miss White.
Yeah.
Miss White.
Hey, this
Yeah.
is Kayla. I don't know if you answered this question or not, but when is our OB exam? The first one? Do you know yet?
16th. The
The
16th.
16th?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good day.
Anybody else?